An Unexpected Love, Book 1. By Mr. Creeder 07. As young hobbits, YN and Bilbo Baggins were closer than anyone could imagine. Obsessed with the idea of leaving the Shire, planning adventures, and already getting themselves into trouble. As they aged into adults, their sense of adventure diminished and they turned themselves into respectable hobbits. Their lives were simple and every day was the same as the last. On a sunny Tuesday morning they were interrupted by the most unlikely creatures. A wizard who, little did they know, would turn their lives upside down. They soon find themselves in the company of Thorin Oakenshield. Now their world has changed and they must do whatever is possible to survive. Disclaimer: I do not own any of the Hobbit characters. Credit goes to J.R.R. Tolkien as well as Peter Jackson. Chapter 1. Bilbo and I sat quietly on the bench outside of Bag End, taking in the morning sunshine. The sun had just risen and it was around 11 in the morning. A butterfly flew in front of me and I reached my hand out. It landed on my finger, looking up at me for only a moment before continuing its journey elsewhere. I closed my eyes and smiled to myself. It was a quiet life here in the Shire. Nothing new ever happened, but it didn't matter. I enjoyed my quiet life with my half-brother. I was born the daughter of Bungo Baggins and a young dwarf woman named Radmuna Greyfeet. My mother died during childbirth and my father remarried Belladonna took a few months later in the spring. They had Bilbo in late September the same year. I grew up with Belladonna acting as a mother figure to me and she treated me as her own. Bilbo and I were as close as anyone. He was a few months younger than me but always acted like my older brother. I sighed in content, preparing myself for another day with my best friend when a shadow interrupted our sunlight. I squinted my eyes open and saw an older man with a grey cloak and a pointed hat standing in front of us. I looked beside me at Bilbo who was also looking up in confusion at the man in front of us. Awkwardly Bilbo took a smoke of his pipe. "Good morning," he said to the man. The man looked at him with confusion. "What do you mean good morning? Do you wish to wish me a good morning or do you mean it is a good morning whether I want it or not? Or perhaps you mean to tell me you feel good on this particular morning?" the man asked Bilbo. Bilbo looked at me confused, then around at a few passers-by, then back at the man, all of them at once, I suppose. The man looked us up and down, judging us. "Can we help you?" I asked him as politely as possible. "That remains to be seen." He paused, figuring out a way to phrase what he would say next. "I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure." I looked over at Bilbo and we both broke into a fit of giggles. "I don't imagine anyone west of Bree would have much interest in an adventure," he told the man, standing up. He reached over and grabbed the mail from the mailbox before grabbing my arm and pulling me slightly towards the house. I nodded in agreement, letting myself be guided toward the door. Bilbo opened the door and was about to pull us both in when the man spoke again. "You two have changed, and not entirely for the better, Bilbo and YN Baggins," the man said to us. "I'm sorry. Do we know you?" I asked him, unable to hide the rude tone that dripped off my words. "Well, you know my name, although I don't think you remember I belong to it. I'm Gandalf, and Gandalf means me," he told us. Then it hit me, "Wait a minute. You don't mean to tell us you are the Gandalf?" I said, looking over at Bilbo who met my gaze with one of confusion. "Remember?" I asked him. "Gandalf the wandering wizard who made such excellent fireworks." Bilbo said, his memory coming back to him. "I had no idea you were still in business," he told the wizard honestly. "And where else would I be?" Gandalf asked, clearly insulted by Bilbo's comment. "Well," Bilbo said, lost for words. Gandalf sighed. "Well, I'm pleased you remember some things about me. Even if it is just my fireworks," he said, nodding. I looked over at Bilbo who was trying to find something to say. Gandalf interrupted his thinking. "Well, it's decided. I shall inform the others, he told us, turning around to leave. Wait, others? I asked, growing nervous. No. We do not want any adventures here. Not today or any other day. I suggest you try somewhere else. Bilbo told Gandalf before taking one more smoke of his pipe, ushering me into the house. Good morning, he said once more before closing the door behind us. That was weird, I said, looking at Bilbo. An adventure. He said quietly, why would he be looking for someone to go on an adventure? He asked me. I don't know. It is very strange. We both jumped, hearing a noise come from the door. It sounded like someone was dragging their nails along the door. No. Bilbo said, that door was just painted. He looked out the window only to see Gandalf walking away humming a tune. Bilbo looked at me. I opened the door but found no evidence of any marking. Shrugging, we walked back inside, going to the pantry room for something to eat. The whole interaction took around an hour and I was hungry again. Hey, save the fish. I'm making it for dinner, Bilbo told me, walking towards his room. I waved him off and collected some ingredients to make eggs and bacon. I hummed to myself while cooking. Cooking always relaxed me. It allowed me to think. YN? Bilbo called. In here. I called back. Bilbo walked into the kitchen and sat down at the table while I finished up cooking our luncheon meal. Do you want to go for a walk after this? He asked me. I nodded and he grabbed me a sweater as I ate my meal quickly. We left and started walking around the Shire. It was always busy, folks running around getting on with their lives. Kids were running around laughing and playing. It reminded me of how Bilbo and I were when we were kids. This is how flashbacks will look like. Bilbo. I screamed from behind a tree. I held up my sword, a sturdy branch, and pointed to the empty woods in front of us. They're getting away. He screamed back. We both ran ahead, jumping over invisible hurdles and stabbing invisible enemies. Bilbo, help! I called to him, falling over after pretending to be stabbed. YN. Bilbo ran over to my side, stabbing enemies along the way. I don't think I am going to make it. I told him, coughing. No, you will, I promise. He told me, holding my hand. You will have to go on without me. I can't, you have to get better. I'll take you to the elves. He got cut off by our mother calling us to dinner. YN. Bilbo. Come along now, children. Dinner is on the table and we don't want it to get cold. She called. She was always soft-spoken and her voice sounded like a melody. Coming. We both called back in unison. We got up and started walking home. That was a good death scene, Bilbo told me, linking arms with me. Thanks. You are good at fighting. He stood up straighter, puffing out his chest. I laughed. One day, Bilbo, I want to go on a real adventure. With real swords and real enemies. Will you come with me? I asked him, looking up into his eyes. Of course. Where would you be without me? He giggled. I smiled as we continued walking. If I was to go on an adventure with anyone, it would be Bilbo.
I'm glad you enjoyed that video/gameplay. Just remember to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below. Until next time, goodbye!